must, and pay attention as you read this in comprehending. Reading with reading comprehension is to the must parts. What are the must parts? He must be educated. Next, he must be assured of a minimum economic security. And this is what has really fallen short, especially, I would say, in RASTAFARI. You understand what really has fallen short? We'll talk about making herb legal and stopping, the exploitation of the ganja so-called traffic. But how are the profits from that really profiting the nation? How are they? Are those who indulge in that and make a lot of money off of that? Or is it just basically a personal kind of thing, for one's personal family, so forth? You see, we have to think bigger and greater. Think outside the so-called box. You understand? Because if you get put in the box, that ends all your aspirations, hopes, and dreams right there. You understand that? So we must be assured of a minimum economic security. He cannot concern himself with matters going beyond the day-to-day satisfaction of his physical needs unless he is fed and clothed and sheltered. Unless he is fed, one, and clothed, you understand, and sheltered. Nor can he acquire a sufficient degree of social consciousness. Everybody talks about being socially conscious about the environment and this and that, so forth and so on. You understand? But as Imperial Master teaches us that man cannot acquire that sufficient degree of social consciousness to be able to subordinate. That means put below and put underneath. You understand? His own personal interest. You understand? Because we all have personal interests. You understand? But if you don't have that sufficient degree of social consciousness, you will not be able to subordinate your own personal interests to the good of the nation and the development of its society. You understand? Freedom, liberty, the rights of man. These are all things that people talk about. Freedom and liberty, the rights of man, human rights, these rights. I got my rights, you got your rights, she got blah, blah, blah. These mean little to the ignorant. You understand? Many times people say, well, a lot of people, black people don't want to, hear about His Majesty and not interested in Haile Selassie, so forth and so on. Perhaps the reason for that is that you're not really speaking His Majesty's truth. You know what I'm saying? If you spoke His Majesty's truth and lived up to that truth, people would be interested and people would really recognize, you know what I'm saying, the stone which the builders have rejected, the Masons, Freemasons, you understand? Freedom, liberty, the rights of man, all these are Freemasonic, you could say, propaganda tools that are used. You understand? Even in many of the lodges and on many of the universities have this as their, libertas and blah, 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 so forth and so on, right? These mean little to the ignorant, you understand? The hungry, the ill-clothed, the badly housed. We have this, what was called? It's called the creed. You understand? The Rastafari creed. Do you know about that? In the creed, in the Rastafari creed, what we call INRI, the International Creed. You understand? I niggas rules Ethiopia. You understand? Iusus Nazarenos, Rexus Israel, close to the Latin, not perfect, but close to Latin. What does our creed state? Our creed says, thy blessings be upon us. The hungry be fed, the naked clothed, the sick nourished, the aged protected, and infants cared for. I'm sure you have heard that before in the Rastafari Creed. You understand? At every bingi, you understand, or Bobo gathering, or even among 12 tribes, that is often said. Do you know where that actually comes from? Do you know what's really the roots? You understand? What are the real roots of that? Because you need to understand what are the real roots of that statement right there. Let's turn to St. Matthew. Let's now turn to our divine heritage. You know what I'm saying? St. Matthew. St. Matthew chapter 25. And it's interesting because this is the Mount Olives, or they call this the Olivet Discourse. You understand? And this is speaking of the Lord's return. Right? The Lord's return, it tests the Gentile nations. You know, so this is what the Schofield Study Bible now, as it teaches us, you understand, to rightly divide the word. You understand? The Olivet Discourse I'm about to read to you. You understand? It's pointing to the Lord's return. You understand? The return of the Lord. And the return of the Lord, it tests the Gentile nations. Now, the reference to this is Joel chapter 3, 11 to 16, the Old Testament background on St. Matthew's chapter 25. I'm at verse 31. I'm beginning with verse 31, all right? Verse 31 says, when the Son of Man, Yesolij, shall come in his glory, His Majesty teaches, for my part, I glory in the Bible, and all the holy angels with him, and as RASTAFARI, we say that we are his messengers, his angels, right? Fiery angels, right? Is that what we say? Firemen, Jehovah's. Then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, the throne of his glory, the throne of great King David. You'll see the Solomonic throne in Ethiopia. Verse 32, and before him shall be gathered all nations. Before him, 72 nations witnessed the coronation November 2nd, 1930. And he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd, the great shepherd we're speaking of, divideth his sheep from the goat. Verse 33, and he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king, the Negush, say to them on his right hand, come, y'all blessed of my Father. Come, all of y'all who are blessed of my Father. Inherit the kingdom, inherit the government, prepared for you from the foundation of the world, from the foundation of this new world order. Now we know it goes back to at least 1776, right? From the foundation of the world. Now you'll say, well, back here it was before 1770. Well, if you overstand prophecy and history, this is the new Roman Empire. So already at this time that Jesus Christos was speaking, Yahushua HaMoshiach, you understand? There was already the old Roman Empire, and prophetically he already knew what was to come because he spoke it to the prophets in the Old Testament. You understand? And we now in the New Testament have to make reminder of this, because the judgment is the next thing to come. You understand? Verse 35, for I was an hungered, in other words, hungry, and y'all gave me meat. Y'all gave me not flesh so much, you understand, but y'all gave me what? Y'all gave me something to eat. You understand? I was thirsty, and y'all gave me drink. I was a stranger, and y'all took me in. Verse 36, naked, and y'all clothed me. I was sick, and y'all visited me. I was in prison, and y'all came to me. Verse 37, then shall the righteous, then shall the tzaddik, relation to Melchizedek, then shall the tzaddik, the righteous, you understand, answer him, saying, Gita, Master, Adonai, Don Hoy, or as you will say in modern Amharic, John Hoy, but we're going to go to our roots. Don Hoy, when saw we thee hungered? When do we see you hungry and fed you, or thirsty and gave drink, or gave you drink? Verse 38, when saw we thee a stranger and took you in, or naked and clothed you? Verse 39. Those are all questions. Or when saw we thee sick or in prison and came to thee? Question. Verse 40. And the Negus and the Negush and the king shall answer and say to them, verily, Amen, Amen. I say to y'all, inasmuch as y'all have done to one of the least of these, my brethren, y'all have done to me. So in the fact that y'all did it to one who is least, and one who's least of not just anybody in the world. Notice that that's a key there. A lot of people fall short of that, not rightly dividing the word. It says the least of these who are my brethren. You understand? Y'all have done it to me. Because if you did it to somebody out there because you felt sorry for them, and that's not one of his brethren, that doesn't count. It doesn't. Plain and simple. Verse 41. Then shall he say also to them on the left hand, depart from me, y'all cursed, to everlasting or eternal fire, prepared for the devil, Diabolos, and his angels, his Melaikt. Now, a lot of people will say, well, this eternal fire, you understand, they're going to be burning eternally. No, the fire burns eternally. They're going to be burnt out. You know what I'm saying? But the fire is that which is eternal. Must. Yeah, and pay attention as you read this in comprehending. Reading with reading comprehension is to the must parts. What are the must parts? He must be educated.